and welcome back to Touch the Fire Twice. I'm Joshua, and I'm here today to do sort of a brand introduction slash in-depth sniff and review of LAFCO New York home fragrance company. I have a Discovery Trio here, which is 3 scents in very small little, almost like tea light sized tins, where I was able to choose 3 different fragrances to review. I purchased, this was my own money, but I'm going to give you a little bit of history of the brand, who they are, what they do, actually sniff and review these scents, which are super in-depth fine fragrance, home fragrance blends, and just talk through that. So I've done a little bit of research. So if you see me referencing my notes, it's just because I want to give you all accurate information as far as the history of the brand, since there's really not a whole lot out there. They're not super, as prevalent as say Nest or some of the other, high-end fragrance companies out there. So LAFCO actually stands for Luxury Articles and Fragrance Company. They say that they're a New York-based home fragrance and body care company that quote, refines and innovates classical approaches to personal care and the art of perfumery. So that's right up my alley, love that. I actually was first introduced to them back when I lived in New York. There was a store, still there of course, and a brand, I think it's an Italian brand that they say is 600 years old or something wild, that is Santa Maria Novella, and they're sort of a boutique and a brand. They actually used to be partnered with LAFCO, and apparently they split into separate independent brands in 2015. But I visited the Santa Maria Novella boutique in New York. It's actually in what I refer to as the Grace Adler building in New York. My office was around the corner, and so I was able to check that out. But now LAFCO is sold in boutiques. If you're familiar with Blue Mercury, that was a boutique that was actually purchased by Macy's, and now there are still, I think, maybe 160 Blue Mercury stores, and it's sold in some Macy's. So you will find LAFCO in some Macy's as well as Bloomingdale's. But they have home fragrance as far as candles, reed diffusers, room mists, and also body care, bar soap, hand soaps, creams, etc. And then all the perfumes are composed by their founder and nose, John Bressler, and he constructs them according to the classic olfactory pyramid structure of stacking notes. So similar to a lot of the notes, Homeworks with Harry Slacken, he talks top, middle, bottom notes. When you talk about boy smells, top, middle, bottom notes. Of course, almost any body fragrance you purchase can have those top, middle, bottom notes, really stacking those so that you have a really well-rounded experience at the beginning, middle, and end of the story of the fragrance. That's the ideal versus just a one note, and that's that from first to last sniff. What's interesting with LAFCO that I noticed when I first sniffed a bunch of their candles, back 10 years ago, was that they have a naming mechanism where they have a name for each of their candle, and it's often related directly to some of the notes in it, but not always. Sometimes it's more conceptual. But they also, when they want candles to evoke a certain mood or feeling, they have it assigned to a place. So their candles, I think all, if not all, most of the scents will say this is office, or this is your country home, or this is the master bedroom, or this is the kitchen. Different rooms in an estate essentially, but just to give you a sense of this is where it might be, this is the mood that it might be right for, but obviously burn what you want, where you want, when you want, right? As far as their candles, just quick details on that, and then I'll get into the 3 scents and show you this Discovery Trio, which is actually a great introduction. I would love for more high-end fragrance and perfumery brands to do things like this. So they have 3 traditional sizes. They have a 6.5 ounce, a 15.5 ounce, and a 30 ounce. I believe the 30 ounces are probably just in maybe their most popular scents or fragrances. The 6.5 ounce retails typically for $46 with a burn time of 50 hours, single wick. The 15.5 ounce, also a single wick, $70, burns for 90 hours. And then the 30 ounce, that's a big candle, 30 ounces, is a 3 wick, retails for $105 and a burn time of 120 hours. What's interesting is they really do match, like any good brand, they match their vessels, the color and the style of the vessel, also to the scent, the mood that it should have. All of the glass vessels are hand-blown artisan, so again, not something that is required for a candle, but it does elevate that experience. It really is an elevated, overall home fragrance mood, vibe, visual, and olfactory scents. And they use soy wax with, they say, a little bit of paraffin they say it enhances the fragrance delivery. News to me, didn't know that. As well as their essential oil-based fragrances. They say no synthetics in them, which is if that is literally about the scent as well, that's quite impressive because most brands use some form of synthetics. And 100% cotton wicks, pretty standard there. What I purchased here, this is awesome. And what this is, these are 3 little tins. I think they also do a travel tin that's maybe 4 ounces or so for $20, something like that. But these are even smaller than the travel tins. These are great little, tins that snap on. And they are 0.43 ounces or 12 grams. And I believe they say it has like a 2 to 4 hour burn time. It really is just in this Discovery trio to get introduced to 3 scents of your choice. And they have maybe 20-ish to choose from. Most of their line, I think there were a couple that weren't options for these little tiny samples. But majority of their collection is available and you choose which 3 you want, which is really nice. And it's customized like that. And these are probably the size of like maybe 1 or 2 tea lights. So small, but good burn, great throw. Because these are highly fragranced, it really is enough, even in this, in my study here, to get a good throw within the room and get a good idea of what the scent is going to be like when burning. And so it even has like the label here. It just has like, what does it say? Sample tin. These were, again, $16, free shipping, and you get a $16 coupon toward any other purchase on their site. So you're literally, if you buy this and then like one of them or want to try something else there, you have $16 value. So this ends up being free, which is fantastic. I haven't seen really any other brand do that. And I'm just super impressed by that. So the 3 scents that I chose, first one was Kitchen, which is Cilantro Orange. The second one is Country House, which is Vetiver Sage. So we got sort of a citrus, we got a woody, and then I was most excited for this Office, Rosemary Eucalyptus, which of course is your herbal. So first up is the Cilantro Orange. The description says, freshly chopped cilantro and blades of lemongrass rest on the cutting board as ribbons of orange zest spiral into a bowl. Juicy mandarin blends with buttery avocado, giving background to a mix of fresh lime, spearmint, and ginger. So you're talking zest, sweet fruit, acid, like greenery, the cilantro. Love putting cilantro in that. I think back to the Bath & Body Works Slatkin mango cilantro, which had cilantro with a sweetness, not so much citrus, but with a mango. Now they say in this, the main notes, cilantro, mandarin, and lime. When we think top, middle, and bottom, what I'll give you here, it says top notes, mandarin oil, orange oil. Middle notes, petitgrain, which petitgrain, interestingly enough, is an oil from the bitter orange tree. The bitter orange tree is used in so much fragrance, both body and home. And what's really cool is the bitter orange fruit itself gives us your traditional bitter orange fragrance. Petitgrain are the twigs and leaves, and that gives us a different fragrance from the tree. And then the orange blossoms is the neroli scent that you see in many things that, again, is a little bit metallic, a little bit sharp blossom, but not a sweet orange blossom from a traditional orange tree. So bitter orange tree, literally all parts of it, 3 different types of oils that come from that. Petitgrain oil is the one that is the twigs and the leaves, so very, very green, right? Also middle notes, avocado, which avocado, it's hard to say. There's not typically much of a smell to that, but a little bit earthy, a little bit really hard to describe, almost a little musty, but again, a warmth or a butteriness to it. And bottom notes, cilantro sprig and lemon verbena. So lemon verbena leaves, I think we're mostly familiar with that. Sniffing this, blind of the notes, separately from that, right? I will say, when I first sniffed it, it smelled, kitchen is accurate, but it almost to me leaned toward like kitchen cleaner or like a kitchen room mist spray. Because again, so much of this is, citrus, which is fine, but it's very much heavy on the zest. So the oils, it even says top note mandarin oil, orange oil, not the sweet juice. You're talking more of the oil from the zest, which is going to be more astringent and lean more towards that cleaner versus like a little bit acidic from, a sweetness of the juice, the fruitiness. I wish there was a little bit of more fruitiness to this, of a sweetness. But you've got the bitter orange with the petitgrain. Avocado, again, hard to say what that's like. To me, that's almost more like a conceptual vibe that you would go for, but maybe there is an actual, note that smells like avocado. There is a green, a lot of green in the cilantro sprig, almost more like the cilantro stems versus the leaves, which are, the leaves are more intensely vibrant. The stems are a bit softer, tender, but still has the cilantro scent and flavor to it. Not quite soapy like some people get from cilantro. And the lemon verbena is very strong. That is, again, you're talking the lemon verbena plant, those leaves that are very green and have a lemony kick to them, not actually lemons. I do like this more now. I liked it more lit. Again, when I first sniffed it, I was like, oh man, and this means, I mean, no disrespect to LAFCO on this. I thought, could like a Glade, you know, bright kitchen zest smell like this? Yes, but nowhere near as complex as this, and it would be like the kind where it just like chokes you out and is gross because it's a cheap lemon verbena zest scent. But it's in that sort of fragrance family as far as they call it kitchen. That makes sense. It is almost like a bright, zesty kitchen cleaner scent. They also mention fresh lime, spearmint, and ginger in the description, but that's not listed in the actual top, middle, bottom notes. So the one thing I will call out with LAFCO that I think is a bit confusing, or I don't know if it's messiness or just you know, not necessary to how they're building it, but the description they have oftentimes will have notes that then don't show up in the actual fragrance notes of top, middle, bottom. So my assumption would be that anything that was listed in the description would actually be part of, they would tell us where in the top, middle, or bottom notes as the official fragrance notes, where those would be. So I'm not sure, and I see that on a lot of their candles where the description has some notes, but the actual top, middle, bottom notes that shows, assuming all of the notes in the fragrance, don't always have it, which is just a little bit confusing. But again, you've got the mandarin, you've got, I don't really get this any mint or ginger necessarily. Very zesty. I'd say it's the mandarin and orange oil with some greenery from the cilantro, though I wouldn't pick out specifically cilantro necessarily, and heavily on that lemon verbena as that final bottom note, that lasting impression. Really nice as far as if you need something bright and zesty and clean, but I will say it's not, you know, if you're used to like a kitchen lemon that's sweet, this doesn't really have a sweetness to it. It is very much cilantro, orange, zest, oil, but a very good interpretation of that. So that is the kitchen cilantro orange. Next one we're going to, I have not burned this one yet, but I'm sure it'll be a great throw based on the first two. Oh, well, this is nice. The next one is Country House or Vetiver Sage. The primary notes they list on the marketing: vetiver, almond blossom, and pink pepper. The description, they say, upon entering, the welcome scent of almond blossoms greets the guests. Aromatic sage and white lavender deepen the earthiness of Haitian vetiver. Woody undertones of orris spiced with pink pepper add a touch of warmth to sandalwood and amber. So this is, first of all, kind of right up my alley for a conceptual blend. Harry with Slatkin & Co. has done things like this before. Certainly Boy Smells is very much similar as far as they're throwing in some herbs, some florals, some deeper herbs or florals, some roots, and then giving you the depth of your amber, your patchouli, things like that. So it's heavy, but it's not overwhelming. It's considered woody in the fragrance family. The official top, middle, bottom notes in this one: top notes white sage, which is actually a bit softer than your green sage, white lavender, black pepper. Middle notes orris, which is the root of the iris flower, chamomile, iris, and sage clary, which again is different than your white sage or your green sage. Rather than being as herbal, the sage clary is a bit more floral and sweet typically. And the bottom notes, they're just boom, boom, boom. You've got Santal Amiris, which is, I believe, Indian sandalwood. And then vetiver, we know the grassy root vetiver, patchouli, and amber. So they're giving you everything: sandalwood, vetiver, patchouli, amber. But it doesn't overwhelm because it really is, and this is what I'll say of all the fragrances I'm reviewing here, they're very well balanced where one note doesn't take it over. Though the bottom note is the lasting and final impression, the top notes, that first impression, the heart of the fragrance, the middle, really does play well, both in the tin and when it's actually burning. For me, I think, again, this reminds me actually a tiny bit of the Denim candle from Boy Smells, and I think that might have been the one that had some of the orris, the iris, maybe even some vetiver in it as well, and then a bit of sweetness with that that almond blossom or almond. So it's got that old world with a bit of freshness. So your old country house, but in the springtime or midsummer, when you're gonna have the sage and the lavender. You do get definitely some pepper. Now again, where it's confusing is they mention pink pepper in the description, black pepper in the fragrance notes. They mention almond blossom in the description, and I definitely get almond blossom in here, but it's not listed anywhere in the official top, middle, bottom fragrance notes. I'd like to see that. I really love fragrances that have almond in them. Harry did toasted almond at Bath and Body Works, and then Homeworks had almond. I think it was almond blossom. I'll put it here. Really love that one. It's nutty, but it's fruity. It's sweet. It's almost like shea or a little bit like tonka. It's kind of creamy and just it's like a warm blanket. They don't use it enough. When brands do cozy blanket or things like that, it leans more like a cashmere heaviness to me, versus almond blossom is just a really, really nice scent that I wish more brands would use. So I would say you get a little bit of that herbal, but the sage, the lavender is all soft. A bit of pepper to start. I love iris and apparently orris as well in fragrances, because it's a floral, but it's not your traditional super powdery floral. It's got a bit of an edge, like a purplish edge to it. And then a really, like a dash when you're talking about the vetiver, the amber, the patchouli, the sandalwood. If it was just one or two of those things and that was the full bottom note, it would be, I think, more intense, but because it's a little bit of each, it just plays around with all of them. So again, it is warm, it's welcoming, it's earthy. Again, I just love the idea. They put that marketing with the country house in your mind, and it really just does feel that way. There's another scent I want to try that's called terracotta, that is like, you know, you're in the Spanish countryside with terracotta, you know, shingles on the roof, or terracotta roof. So again, I really do like this. I'd say sweeter actually than the citrus, which you would not expect. I think that the sage, the lavender is a little bit of a sweetness, maybe that almond blossom as well, without being a full floral, but just really softened and warmed by the vetiver and the patchouli and the amber. Really, really nice scent. And then the final one, the one that I was most excited about, and I don't know if I like the most or not, but it's very, very good, is Office, or Rosemary Eucalyptus. This one, the top, the descriptors here are eucalyptus, basil, and rosemary. They say clear the mind and get inspired. Tangy and robust juniper, eucalyptus, and fresh rosemary emerges the aromatic top notes of basil and sage recede. Warm patchouli and elemi instill an earthy, woody base. Top notes here, juniper berry, garden sage. Middle, rosemary Morocco oil and eucalyptus. Bottom notes, patchouli Indonesia and elemi oil. Now again, they don't mention in those notes specifically, they mention the rosemary and the eucalyptus, they don't call out the basil there. When I first sniffed this, because I tried to sniff these blind other than just seeing generally what they recommend on the website, this is heavily basil to me. I expected it to be more of a true rosemary herbal, and the rosemary is very mild in the background. It's a mid note, but it's not rosemary forward at all. To me, the basil, probably also the juniper, and your traditional garden sage, but the basil is almost the initial strength for me there. And they do say that's a top note in the description there. But with me, and stick with me here, this is not a bad thing, but basil sometimes is very musky, almost like a cat urine or a cat pee. Not like some people say that peach is like BO or something, not in that direction, but the same way that sometimes like Sauvignon Blanc wine has a bit of a musky, I don't know if it's a floral what, but almost like a cat pee. Not as intense, not actually like cat pee, but there's just like some probably similar chemical compound in there that basil sometimes has. Like if you buy basil in a clamshell from the grocery store and it sits on your counter for a day, someone's like, man, that is a really musky, astringent note, and that is what basil brings. And again, sometimes Sauvignon Blanc wine has that as well, very green. And that's here, but you're not gonna smell this and think cat pee, so stop if you're going in that direction. So that is where it starts with, a lot of the basil, but there's a real sweetness, almost a pine from the juniper berry, that kind of reminds me almost of like the way that when I smell juniper and eucalyptus, I immediately go to Slatkin & Co. Holly Wreath, which is just mounds of juniper berries and eucalyptus among many other things and more pines. But there's a sweet, cool greenness to this with the juniper for sure, and the basil is brighter and takes it away from being holiday. Again, rosemary is there probably as like the woody mid green, but it's not. I wouldn't pick it out blind on this because it's not like the typical, if you smell rosemary, exactly what it is, which I don't often get in home fragrance or candles. And the patchouli and the elemi oil apparently is similar to like a frankincense. So it's kind of bright, fresh. I think if I read correctly, I want to say it was almost like a spicy sweet balsamic edge to it, but in the resinous family of like a frankincense. And the patchouli does not make, it is still like spa office. It's not a heavy, earthy, Woodstock hippie kind of patchouli. It's very clean patchouli. So yeah, this one's so interesting, and it's strong. For me, again, it's juniper, basil, a green sage, not a dry powdery sage. And the eucalyptus is a soft, powdery eucalyptus. It's not overly astringent. When you think of some of the eucalyptus from, say, Bath & Body Works that are Bam eucalyptus, this is a softer kind of rub the powder off of the eucalyptus as it dries. Oh, the more I smell it, the more the initial basil, that sort of like fades in the background. And there's a brightness from that juniper berry. And this one is, I think this is one of their top sellers, understandably so. The name, the imagery, and the notes just are really super unique when it comes to many brands try to do sort of, your herbal fragrances and your spa fragrances. This one's really unique, really well executed. So overall, I'm really impressed with their blends. If you've smelled LAFCO before, let me know. Or I, again, highly recommend spending the $16 free shipping to get these, three sample tins of your choice. But check it out. Let me know what you think if you smelled it before. And hopefully I'll have some more to bring you in the future. And until next time, guys, take care.